Hello, my name is Max Zavala. This is for the Intro to Cinema class. We're doing a movie review on Star Wars Episode 1. This is Julian, and we're going to start off with the first question is basically, what is Episode 1? Julian, what is Episode 1? What's Star Wars Episode 1?
Okay, so Episode 1 is the first episode in George Lucas's trilogy. It just mainly follows a young Anakin Skywalker, and it basically just projects and shows all of what's going on in the early stages of the war between the Separatists and the Republic.
Okay, so this was made after the original trilogy, which was Episode 4, 5, and 6. So this is the very, very first time we'll ever hear of Anakin Skywalker, right?
Yes.
And from the lineage of Episode 1 through Episode 9 eventually, this is the very first movie that Anakin Skywalker is in. He's a little kid, right?
Yes. This is the very first episode.
Okay.
Where he is shown on, what's it called? Or where he's, in the timeline, this is the first episode.
Okay, so he's followed by two Jedis, right?
Yes.
Who are these two Jedis?
Qui-Gon Jinn and a young, I think it's Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Cool, and they're both played by Ewan McGregor, that's Obi-Wan, and then Liam Neeson is Qui-Gon Jinn, which is Obi-Wan's master.
Master.
Okay, cool. Who else is famous for being in Episode 1? Some comical characters, some fun characters?
Jar Jar Binks.
Okay.
I mean, he's just one of the really followed characters. I guess he's the comic relief here, in the movie. He's the one that's always super clumsy. He's all over the place, and it's funny because there's usually a chain reaction to whatever he does, because whatever he does usually affects the characters later on in the movie. So it's really fun. He's a cool addition.
So you like Jar Jar Binks?
Yeah, I honestly do. In this, I know there's a lot of people who, there's been saying that people dislike the character. And people have been really giving George Lucas a hard time about it. But I personally think that it adds a much more uplifting and fun tone to the movie.
Because after all, Star Wars is a kids movie. I mean,
Yes.
The older ones were kind of aimed towards kids. I mean, there's a toy line, there's everything.
It's profitable. Jar Jar Binks is profitable.
Yes, exactly. So you would understand why Jar Jar Binks was a big part of their marketing ploy. You just see him everywhere. I remember when it first came out that, he was on everything.
And that's the thing. I think George Lucas was going for something different because in the original trilogy, it's really much more serious, darkish tone to it. And they're doing the same sense too. But I think with the addition of Jar Jar Binks, it kind of just balances it out in terms of on the less serious side. There's another character here that the younger kids can relate to. It's much more fun for them.
Cool. So we gotta have a good idea of starting place on what Episode 1 is. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Let's see. What are some of the themes in Episode 1? The first one I could think of is basically kind of a coming-of-age story of a young Anakin. If spoilers, he becomes Darth Vader at the end. But basically, it's a young Anakin Skywalker, and kind of what makes him or leads him on the path to becoming a Jedi. At least for this first movie. Could you think of any other themes maybe in the movie, possibly?
Just an action adventure.
Okay.
It comes from George Lucas, and if you already know, George Lucas has done plenty of projects for example, he's helped out on Indiana Jones, much more, cinematic, explosions and all that. And I think this really follows, This really follows all of that. So yeah, I think another type of movie this is action and adventure.
Action-adventure. Yeah, so definitely very heavy in the action, kind of blockbuster, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, signature action scenes and stuff like that. Definitely some action themes in there. Do you think that there's any kind of themes of greed or political corruption maybe? There's definitely a pretty huge political theme in Star Wars, at least this one.
Yeah, well, during this point in time in the movie, they're going through a lot of politics right now with the Chancellor and the Padme being the princess and all that.
So real quick, so who's Chancellor or who's that?
Chancellor Palpatine. He's he oversees most of what's going on for the Republic, and he usually just has to report to his superiors. But whenever something's being done, it's usually Palpatine that's running things, which also plays a huge role because spoilers, Palpatine is usually the guy behind pulling the strings.
Oh no!
So he just plays a higher power in the Republic. He's trying to work his way up, and you can really see him like contesting within this film.
And there's another politician. I mean, you know that it's Queen Amidala.
Yes.
But Padme, you did mention Padme. Padme is Queen Amidala, right?
Yes, but there's a twist in the movie. It turns out that the person who is playing Queen Amidala is actually one of her, I guess you would say, like helpers or servers, I guess. She's just impersonating her for her own security and protection, which was a pretty smart move because during the process, there's like a bunch of like bounty hunters that are actually trying to like kill her and have her. At the beginning of the movie, it starts off with the assassination attempt with the exploding of her ship. So yeah, she's just really on the edge, and it reveals later in the movie that Padme is actually pretending to be one of her own servers. So it's actually really interesting the way that she did that.
And that's kind of how they get her through the story, right? Like, I mean, the two Jedi, who else is it? Jar Jar, they get stranded, or they stop at Tatooine, and from there they want to send someone that's with the Queen's crew along with them to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they send the Queen's handmaiden, which you find out later that it's Padme, it's the Queen. Right. Okay. So those are a couple of themes. Definitely something having to do with politics, because this movie is heavy in the politics with the separatists and Trade Federation, which I think they're the same thing, right? And of course with the Empire. Well, it's not the Empire yet. It was the Republic.
Yeah, it's the Republic.
Okay.
The Galactic Republic.
And then also, of course, the coming of age of Anakin Skywalker with his mom, basically getting moved with two Jedi and being trained later on in the movie, basically. So, bookending that, what are some of the, what's the style of the movie, would you say? I mean, definitely some sci-fi in there, right?
Yes, it's a sci-fi, it's fantasy, action, adventure. The style of it, in terms of cinematography and stuff, they incorporated a lot of the CGI throughout the movie. And you can tell that they do it just to make the world feel a lot bigger and immersive and stuff. And you can definitely tell, obviously CGI has gotten better within the past few years, but yeah, they're trying to capture the sci-fi effect and everything, just like being a fantasy and stuff, the new worlds and all that, so it's really heavy. They implemented a lot of CGI.
So it's crazy, because I mean, Star Wars, the original trilogy, they were known a lot for their practical effects and just like their special effects pioneering of how things became. Like after a Star Wars movie was made, basically, I mean, Jim Henson, an old artist who basically made puppeteers and stuff. I mean, his factory basically profited off of the old trilogy because of those practical effects. But this movie has a good mixture of both practical and digital effects, right?
I think this was a huge stepping stone for Lucasfilms and for everybody that worked on the project, especially because I think that this was the episode that really kicked off the CGI. Obviously, and with the time it was made, CGI was still in the works and process, and that was something he took a risk and really tried to implement it into his film to really showcase it, and it actually worked pretty well. And it was, yeah, like you said, it was pioneering and stuff. It really set the pace for the rest of the movies.
Cool. We talked a good deal about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Overall, what would you give this movie? I mean, did you like it? Let's give it a star rating. Let's give it a 5, or out of 5 stars. First of all, did you like the movie, and what would you give it?
Given that I've seen all the previous ones before that and stuff, I would give it about a 4.5.
4.5?
4.5 stars.
Wow, okay, that's pretty high.
Because, one, I like the storytelling. I love all the characters, they're super diverse. I also liked how also this was where it all started. This is the first in the timeline, so
Yeah,
you know
important.
this is like pretty significant when it comes to Star Wars as you know a saga. This was pretty important, so they needed to do this film. So what I'm saying is that I really liked this one specifically. I think the characters did a really good job portraying and all that. The actors portraying the characters. I just overall liked the movie as a whole. Not really too much on the bad side. I just really liked it.
Cool. So you would recommend the movie?
Oh, totally. Honestly, I would recommend all of them.
Cool.
They're really great. This one specifically, totally great.
Cool. Okay, so you did like the movie. I guess for myself, I mean, I saw the movie when it originally came out. You know, I'd heard maybe sometime in the '90s that you know, George Lucas was going to make the first 3 trilogy, and just kind of followed it all through its marketing campaign and everything, and I was on board the whole time. I absolutely loved it when I first saw it, and then I guess over time, after they made episode 2 and 3, and you had more time to kind of take in everything as a whole piece, I kind of started to wane a little bit because, you know, kind of started to see a lot of the weak points of the movie. Out of a 5, I would give it maybe about a 3 stars, just because, you know, over time, I guess like how Anakin, or at least Jake Lloyd, the actor who played Anakin Skywalker, I adored him when he first came out. I mean, I felt like maybe I was at that age where I was like, oh, cool, he's a little kid kind of thing. But I guess over time, I was like, oh, they could have maybe gone with a better child actor, maybe Haley Joel Osment or something. But I mean, you know, they ended up going with him, but he was okay. Definitely love that pod racing scene. I think we didn't even mention it, but the pod racing scene was probably one of the best things.
Yes,
it's awesome. But yeah, I'd give it maybe 3 stars, and I would definitely recommend the movie, especially if you're looking forward to seeing the whole, 9 movies by December, like in the whole span of Star Wars, the Skywalker saga. There you go. Okay, so so this was us basically making a movie review for Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace. I'm Max. This is Julian, and thanks for watching.